There is something he has not told you, something that started the moment you went quiet. You did not raise your voice. You did not send a long message full of accusations or desperate questions. You did not beg, explain, or shrink yourself to keep the connection breathing. You simply stopped. You withdrew your warmth, your attention, your willingness to be the one who reaches first. And that silence, your silence, did something to this man that no conversation, no argument, no amount of love spoken out loud could have ever accomplished. He was not prepared for what happened next. He is still not prepared. And the love that has been expanding inside the absence of your words is deeper, more consuming, and more undeniable than anything his conscious mind knows how to process. What is happening inside him right now, because of the space you created when you chose to stop reaching, is something that will permanently reshape everything between you. This message is arriving at this moment because the connection between you and this person has entered a stage that demands stillness rather than noise. And somewhere beneath the doubt, beneath the exhaustion of waiting, you already know that. But before I share with you exactly what your silence activated inside him, and I need you to understand, it is something far more profound and more permanent than simply missing you. You need to see the full psychological architecture beneath what is unfolding, because this is not merely about a man noticing an empty space where your messages used to be. This is about a man being forced, perhaps for the first time in his entire adult life, to sit with the full, unmediated, uncushioned weight of what you mean to him. And that process, once it takes hold, cannot be reversed. It cannot be unfelt. It cannot be folded back into the small, manageable box where he kept it before you went quiet. If you sense that this message arrived at the exact moment you needed to hear it, stay close to this space. The next message that finds you will carry precisely what your spirit needs next. Now, let me describe something to you, and as you hear this, I want you to notice what happens in your chest. There was a night recently, maybe not last night, maybe a few nights ago, maybe last week, when you were lying in bed and the room was dark and your phone was face down on the nightstand. Not because you forgot about it, because you made a deliberate decision not to look. Not because you had stopped caring, but because you were exhausted from being the one who checks. The one whose heart lifts and then drops with every notification that turns out to be nothing. The one who refreshes a screen hoping for 3 words that never come. And in that darkness, with the phone turned over and your eyes open and the ceiling offering nothing but blankness, you felt something you could not quite name. Not sadness exactly, not anger, something quieter and heavier. Something like a deep, settled knowing that had been building for weeks. A knowing that you had poured out everything you had to give, and that the next movement had to come from him or it would carry no meaning at all. You have been living inside that knowing. It sits behind your sternum like a stone that is too smooth to grip and too heavy to put down. You feel it when you are driving and a song catches you off guard and your eyes sting before you can stop them. You feel it in the grocery store when you pass something he once mentioned and your hand hovers for half a second before you pull it back. You feel it most in the mornings, in that fragile window between sleep and full waking, when your defenses have not yet assembled and you are just raw, just open, just aware of the enormous space where his presence used to live. And the hardest part, the part that makes this lonelier than it has any right to be, is that nobody around you fully understands the weight of it. Your friends see you functioning. They see you showing up to work, responding to texts, laughing when something is funny. They do not see what happens at 2 a.m. when the performance ends and you are alone with the unedited truth of how much this person lives inside you. I see it. And more importantly, what I am about to tell you will show you that he is carrying the same immovable weight in his own chest right now. Your silence placed it there. And with every day that you remain still, it grows heavier inside him in ways he cannot outrun. And I need to say something to you before we go further because I know there is a voice inside you that has been whispering something cruel. It has been telling you that maybe you caused this. That maybe if you had said the right thing, sent the right message, been a little more patient or a little less emotional, things would be different now. That voice is lying to you. Nothing you did created the distance between you. Nothing you failed to say is the reason for his silence. What is happening between you is not a consequence of your mistakes. It is a consequence of his unfinished relationship with himself. And that distinction matters more than almost anything else I will say today. There is also a moment I want to name that you have not told anyone about. It happened in a public place. Maybe at work, maybe with friends, maybe in a room full of people who have no idea what you are going through. Someone said his name, or someone said a word that sounded close enough, and something moved through your body so fast that you had to physically rearrange your expression before anyone noticed. That fraction of a second where the mask almost slipped, where the real weight of what you are carrying almost became visible. You recovered. You always recover. But recovering is not the same as being fine, and you know the difference even if everyone around you does not. What I'm about to reveal to you next is the reason that moment happened, and it is the same reason he is having his own version of that moment, in his own public places, with his own mask barely holding. Here is what most people fundamentally misunderstand about silence in a connection that runs as deep as yours. They think silence is absence. They think when you stop reaching out, the space between two people goes dead, like a wire that has been cut. But Carl Jung understood something that transforms everything about how we should interpret withdrawal and quiet. Jung described what he called the self-regulation of the psyche, the principle that the unconscious mind possesses its own corrective intelligence, its own stabilizing force that works entirely beneath awareness. When something essential is removed from a person's emotional ecosystem, the psyche does not accept the vacancy. It compensates. It amplifies. It drags to the surface whatever was being suppressed, avoided, or denied while the external stimulus was still providing comfort. What that means in the plainest terms is this: while you were present, while you were the one initiating and carrying the emotional labor of the connection, his unconscious mind had a buffer, a shock absorber. It could postpone the reckoning with his own feelings. It could keep delaying the confrontation with his own depth. It could tell itself that things were manageable, that the situation was under control, because you were still there, still warm, still reliably available, still filling the space that would otherwise force him to feel. Your consistency was, without you knowing it, the very thing that allowed his avoidance to survive unchallenged. Your warmth gave his fear a comfortable room to hide in, where it never had to announce itself or explain why it was there. And then you went quiet, and the buffer vanished, and everything his unconscious had been holding beneath the waterline began to rise toward air. When you feel ready, type the words, "My silence carries power," in the comments as an act of honoring the immense courage it took to stop reaching for someone your heart still aches for. Now I need to walk you carefully through what happened inside this man after you went still, because it did not happen as a single event. It happened in stages, and each stage has been carrying him deeper into a confrontation he has been running from since before he ever met you. The first thing your silence created was what depth psychology calls liminal space, a threshold state. Not here, not there, not together, not apart, not over, not continuing. Liminality is one of the most psychologically disorienting experiences a human being can occupy because it dissolves every certainty the ego relies on. There are no walls to lean against in liminal space, no story that holds, no version of events that fully explains what is happening. When you withdrew your presence from his daily reality, you did not leave a gap. You opened a doorway, and the nature of that doorway is that it only permits passage in one direction. He cannot return to the version of himself that existed before your silence. The only available path is forward, through the feelings he was postponing, through the avoidance he had mistaken for control, through the terrifying recognition that you have woven yourself into the architecture of his inner world so deeply that your removal shook the entire structure. You might be thinking that his continued quiet is proof that he is fine without you, that if he felt what I am describing, surely he would have acted by now. Surely the silence would have broken. I understand why that conclusion keeps forming. Your logic is not wrong, but logic operates on the surface, and what is happening to him is not a surface event. A man who is genuinely unaffected by your absence does not change. His rhythms stay constant. His energy remains steady. But a man trapped inside that liminal threshold, a man whose entire emotional foundation is being reorganized by the vacuum you created, that man presents exactly what you have been seeing: distance, stillness, a kind of paralysis that looks from the outside like indifference but is in truth the opposite. He is not still because nothing is happening. He is still because everything is happening at once and his conscious mind cannot yet organize it into movement. Type, "The threshold is his to cross" in the comments if you recognize the truth in what you are hearing. The second stage, your silence activated, cuts even deeper. Jung described a process called the withdrawal of projections. When two people are emotionally bonded, each one projects onto the other hopes, unmet longings, images of what love should feel like that were formed long before the relationship began. As long as the other person remains present and engaged, those projections stay comfortably external. They live on the relationship's surface. They feel manageable. But the moment you went quiet, the moment you removed yourself as the screen onto which he had been casting everything he was not ready to own, those projections lost their anchor. They fell inward. They returned to their source. And suddenly he was not thinking about you in the familiar way. He was thinking about himself, about why your absence registered not as freedom, but as a kind of physical ache located somewhere behind his ribs that would not move regardless of what he did. About why the space where your voice used to be was filling not with relief, but with a weight that made ordinary distractions feel hollow. Your silence forced his projections to collapse back into his own psyche. And when projections return, they bring with them every emotion that was being outsourced, every feeling that was safely externalized while your availability provided distance from it. This is not a man who has stopped caring. This is a man being confronted with the raw, unmanageable, completely undeniable reality of what you occupy inside him. And that confrontation terrifies him more than anything you could have written in a message. I know a part of you wants to interpret his silence as evidence that you were easy to release, that what you shared was lighter than you thought. But consider this: a man who has released you does not carry tension in places he cannot explain. A man who has moved past you does not find himself pausing in the middle of ordinary tasks with no clear reason for the pause. A man who is free of you does not avoid the things that remind him of you, because avoidance requires awareness, and awareness requires that you are still taking up residence inside him. His silence is not the sound of someone who has let go. It is the sound of someone holding on so tightly in such a private and compressed space that the effort of it has made him unable to speak. But what I am about to explain changes the meaning of everything you have been enduring. And I need you to stay with me here, because this next part is where the pain you have been carrying reveals its purpose. But here is precisely where the hope lives, and I need you to grip this tightly. Jung explored a concept known as privatio boni, the principle that the removal of something good is not merely deprivation. It is the mechanism through which a deeper, more conscious, more unshakable relationship with that good becomes possible for the first time. While you were present, he could love you passively. He could absorb your warmth without examining it. He could benefit from your energy without ever confronting what that energy meant to the structure of his daily survival. Your silence removed the autopilot. It forced him into manual navigation. And manual navigation requires that he look, truly, deliberately look, at the full terrain of what he feels. That examination is painful, but it is the only road toward the kind of love that does not need to be reminded of its own existence, the kind that has been tested by absence and proven unbreakable. When you feel this resonating, type "What survives is real" in the comments to acknowledge the truth of what remains when everything superficial has been burned away. Now I need you to sit with something before I continue. There is a version of this story that your fear keeps replaying, the version where he simply moves on, where your silence gives him the exit he was looking for and he walks through it without turning around. I know that version. I know it visits you in the shower when your guard drops. I know it whispers loudest in the moments when you almost type something and then close the screen. But hold that fearful version up against what is actually happening in the field between you, because they do not match. If he had truly moved on, you would feel it. You would feel a release, a cord going slack, a dropping sensation in your chest that signals something is finally, definitively over. You have felt that sensation before with other people. You know what completion feels like in the body? It feels like air leaving a room. What you are feeling right now is nothing like that. What you feel is tension, a taut, living thread that has not loosened one fraction since you went quiet. A thread that tightens at unexpected moments, when you hear a certain name, when you drive past a certain place, when the light hits a window at a certain angle, and your body remembers something your mind was trying to file away. That tension is not delusion. That tension is the psychic equilibrium Jung identified, the deep unconscious refusing incompleteness, reaching across whatever distance separates two people whose bond was disrupted before it could arrive at its natural resolution. He feels that tension too, not when he expects to, not during the busy, crowded hours, but in the cracks. In the 3-second pause before sleep claims him, in the strange impulse to revisit a street that holds no practical purpose, in the way certain words land differently now because they carry an echo of you. These are not decisions. These are the movements of the collective unconscious, the shared psychic layer that operates beneath individual awareness, pulling him towards something his waking mind has not yet authorized. Type, he feels it in the cracks, if you know exactly what I am describing because you have felt the same pull from your side of the silence. Let me tell you about the third stage, because this is the one he is entering now, and this is the one that changes everything. After the liminal disorientation, after the projections collapsed, after the discomfort outgrew every rationalization he attempted, there comes a moment that analytical psychology recognizes as the nigredo, the blackening, the necessary descent, the psychological darkness that must precede every genuine rebirth. This is not collapse. This is not defeat. This is not what your fear tells you it is. This is the psyche doing the most courageous thing it knows how to do, disassembling a structure that was never strong enough to hold the truth. And for this man, the structure being dismantled is the belief that he could exist fully without you. The story that withdrawal was maturity, the conviction that emotional distance and emotional safety were the same thing. They are not the same thing, and his unconscious finally knows it. If you have stayed with me this far, what comes next was meant specifically for you, because this is the part most people never hear. And it is the part that matters most. Your silence did not manufacture this descent. It removed the last support that was keeping the false architecture upright. You were, without ever planning it, the scaffolding that allowed his avoidance to stand. While you were there, warm, consistent, reachable, the walls he had built around his own depth did not need to be strong. They only needed to be present. Your energy did the rest. It filled the space so completely that he never had to ask what would happen if that space were empty. When you stepped away, the scaffolding fell. And now he stands inside the ruins of his own defenses, and at the very foundation of those ruins, the thing every barrier was constructed to conceal from his own conscious awareness, is the permanent, structurally irreversible, undeniable truth of what he feels for you. Not as an idea, not as a memory, as a living force that has reshaped the geography of his inner world and left no room for the lie that he could walk away whole. Type, "My withdrawal was wisdom" in the comments to honor the deep instinct that guided you towards stillness when every part of you wanted to reach out. You are wondering when. When does the silence break? When does internal shift become visible action? I want to be truthful with you, because your patience has earned truth, not comfortable fiction. I do not know the exact moment. Neither does he. But what every principle of Jungian depth psychology confirms is that the nigredo does not end in darkness. It ends in clarification, in light breaking through what was opaque. And when that light reaches him, it will not arrive as a tentative, half-committed gesture. It will carry the full accumulated force of every quiet night, every suppressed impulse, every moment he reached for his phone and then stopped himself because he was not yet ready to speak what he had finally seen. Something is already shifting beneath the surface of what you can observe. The signs may still look like distance from where you stand, but underground, tectonic plates are moving. The unconscious does not follow your calendar or his. It operates in its own season, and the season your silence planted is approaching its harvest. Watch for this. Not grand gestures, not dramatic confessions. The first evidence will be quiet, almost accidental. A message that reads casual, but took him 40 minutes to write and rewrite. A reference to something specific from your shared past that reveals he has been replaying moments you thought only you remembered. A look, if you see him, that holds 1 second past where it should release, carrying behind it the full weight of everything he processed inside the space you gave him. These are not random events. They are the first fractures in a wall that your silence made unsustainable. Type, I will recognize the signs to prepare yourself for what is approaching. I want you to close your eyes for a moment if you can, and let me show you what is coming. Not as fantasy. As the natural conclusion of every psychological force your silence set into motion. There will be a day, an ordinary day that begins like any other, when your phone will light up with his name, or you will turn a corner and he will be there, or a knock will come that you were not expecting. And in that first second of contact, before either of you has spoken, the air between you will feel different. Charged. Heavy with everything that was processed in the months of quiet. You will see it in the way he stands. There will be no performance in his posture. No rehearsed casualness. He will look like a man who has been stripped of pretense and arrived carrying only what is real. And when he speaks, the words may come slowly. They may come out of order. He may start a sentence and abandon it and start another. But beneath the stumbling, you will hear it, the unmistakable sound of truth that has been pressurized by silence until it could no longer stay contained. He will not say everything perfectly, but he will say the one thing that matters. And you will feel in your body, not just in your mind, that what he is offering has been tested by absence and survived. That it is not impulse, it is not loneliness wearing the costume of love. It is the thing that remained when everything else was stripped away. And when the moment arrives, when, not if, because this psychological process completes once activated, it does not expire, it will be different from what you pictured. Quieter, less rehearsed, more human. It will be a man standing before you who looks subtly altered, not his face, his eyes. There will be something behind them that was not there before, a depth earned through passage, a steadiness that only comes from having walked through one's own darkness and choosing to carry back the one thing found there that made the journey worth surviving. That thing is the truth of you, of what you are to him, of what no silence, no distance, no amount of avoidance could dissolve. He will not deliver flawless words. He may begin and stop. He may say something small that contains everything large. But underneath the imperfect surface you will feel the frequency change, that unmistakable resonance of a man who has finally stopped running from the only thing that could bring him home. Until that day arrives, here is what I need you to hold on to. Do not chase that moment. Do not engineer it. Do not send the message your hands have composed and erased more times than you can count. Do not soften your silence to make his process more comfortable. His discomfort is not your responsibility, it is his doorway. The most powerful thing you can do right now is exactly what you have already been doing. Hold the silence. Trust what it is building in places you cannot see. Continue being the woman who chose her own dignity over the desperation of filling every quiet space with effort. Continue being the woman who realized that her value does not decrease because someone is taking time to recognize it. That choice, The choice to be still when everything inside you screamed to move was not passive. It was not weakness. It was the single most transformative act his soul could have received. And it is still working, right now. As you hear these words, it is still doing its quiet, relentless, irreversible work inside him. If this message unlocked something you have been carrying alone, share it with someone who needs to remember that their silence was never emptiness. It was power working in the dark. Type, "Silence is my strength" in the comments if you are choosing to trust the process that is unfolding, even when you cannot see its edges. To continue receiving these messages at the moment they are meant to arrive, stay connected to this journey. Something is building that cannot be reversed. And the next message that reaches you will meet you in the exact place you need to be found. You are heard, you are powerful, you are the silence that changed everything.